Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we Masechtas Chulin daf Mem Zayin. We are going to begin on Mem Vav Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. So we've been learning about the dinim of the Reya, about having a hole in the lungs, which would render it treifa. So in this Omer Meimar Mishmei Rava, Ein Makifin B'voy, that we do not bring another lung and to compare it when we're dealing with that of a discolored blister. And on this, Rashi explains, what is this talking about? We don't know when this blister developed. Was it before the shechita or afterwards? So maybe you can bring another piece comparable to it to look at its color to be able to ascertain. So this Rashi says, "Ein maviin boya cheres l'hakir v'lakriv etzla." You can't bring it next to it to compare. Or noikva, to put a hole there, v'lirois imara ha nakm shavim, and to be able to see if the color will be the same. And the reason is that since the hole in a blister is constantly changing, right? The color is constantly changing, so comparing it to another doesn't prove anything, because even though they may look the same now, but maybe that color of the blister had been a different color before the examination, and therefore that will not help us understand anything. Okay, the Omer Rabbi. So we're now going to continue and analyze the lung. So first of all, we're going to look at this picture at great length. You'll notice that the way that the lung is shaped, there are two large lobes which are called umos, or an uma, which is aleph, vav, mem, aleph. And this is, of course, this is the trachea, or the windpipe going into the lungs, which expand and contract. So that is something in which takes place, of course, with the lungs. Now the two bottom ones, again, are called the uma, with a mem. There's also 5 small lobes, and those are called ona, aleph, vav, nun, aleph. So the two big ones on the bottom are uma, or with these two big lobes. And there's 5 small ones, 3 on one side and 2 on the other. And we're also going to see in a moment this other lobe, which is called the Ninisa de Varda, which literally means rose, what exactly the status is of that. Okay, so once we understand just the basic makeup of the lungs, we're also going to speak about sirchas, when there's certain attachments from one to the next. So let's see the first couple of lines in this Gemara, then we're going to read a little bit from this book in the next section. V'yomer Rava, Hani tarti oini. When it comes to the two unais, which there's 5 of them on the top, 2 on one side and 3 on the other. So let's focus on the one side which has 3. Now let's say you have 2 of them which are somewhat near each other, or very near each other, the sarichin lahadadi, and they are stuck together by some type of connector. Now, if it just remains the way it is, it's okay. The problem is that if it tears, then it becomes a problem. So you say leisel hubadika, it's a treifa, you can't do anything about it. However, lo amar and el shul kasidra, the whole issue is if the sircha is not keseder. In other words, if there's 3 on one side or 2 on the other, let's just focus on one of the 3. So if number 1 and number 3 are connected, then that's considered problematic. Of a kesidron, if let's say you have one of the onais, let's say the middle one is connected to the upper one, then we say it's okay. Hainu revisaihu. That's somewhat how it's grown, and we're not concerned that the sircha may tear apart, and therefore it's kosher. Now, why? Because they're right next to each other. But if they're separated, one to the third is connected, so then there could be a pull. So look at Rashi. Hainu Sahu. So it says Zu Magina al Zu. Each one basically protects the other. V'hadar Bari, and it gets healthy. Shemitayich Sheicheva Zu al Zu. Since they're basically living next to one another, they're right next to one another. Einu mis parkais. They're not going to rip. Vakrum hoylech v'chazak, and therefore the membrane will continue to get stronger. However, of a kashen shalokisir, and let's say it's the first oina, and the top one and the bottom one, right? Not again. There's 5, so 3 and 2. The 2 big ones, which we're going to get to in a second, which are the umais. So that is a whole different story. We're focusing on the small oinois on the top. So if oina on the top is connected to the oina on the bottom, or 1 to 3, so then that's a problem. So why is that a problem? Says Rashi, because they're not next to each other and they're moving, so they're going to kind of move in different directions. Vakrum misparek, so the membrane will tear, v'nister, and it'll be destroyed. Now, the question is, if it's true, Rashi asked this question, if there's a sircha connecting the oinois, the lobes, so then if they're connected, then it's okay. What if the bottom oina is connected to the uma? Again, there's 2 large lobes. So what if one of the large lobes is connected through this connector, the sircha? It's connected to the bottom ona, right? Which is called ona tachtona. The lower right cranial lobe is connected to the right caudal lobe, which again, the ona to the uma. Do we say that this din only applies to the 5 onos, or does it even apply from ona to an uma? So on this, Rashi says it's actually machlokas. Va'ona hasrucha ba'uma, v'hi etzla, they're next to each other. Masabli v'shalti as Rabbi as P. Rabbeinu Yankiv ben Rabbi Yokor. V'tiruli l'echel v'yesh oishim. So some say it's okay, and some say it's not okay. So why would it be okay? So skipping a bunch of lines. Kloimer kach hayu gediloi, so that's how they grew. Zuim zu next to each other. Then misparku zumizu. They're not going to tear apart, not going to ruin the membrane. Hilkach loshna oini v'loshna uma. It shouldn't make a difference. It should still be good. However, those who are oiser, it says, they say hari nekev yesh v'lo matzasi shehuter elob oini. It's only by the una. Aval umi loik amar. When it comes to the umais, the big lobes, the caudal lobes, caudal, that we do not say. Okay, so that's a mouthful, but it's an important concept, and again, this machlokes that Rashi brings down. So let's just spend a few minutes reading about this. It says, if there is a sircha, which is translated as an adhesion. So the normal healthy lung hangs practically free in the chest cavity, moored in place only by the root of the lung. This arrangement allows the lung to freely expand and contract as it inhales and exhales air. Nevertheless, when examining the lungs of slaughtered animals, especially older domesticated animals such as cows and bulls, one often finds strong, fibrous string-like adhesions, sirchas, connecting various sections of the lungs to each other. These adhesions, again called sirchais, or sircha, are indicative of a problem in the lungs. It says, so Rashi explains that it's a result from an existing puncture in the lungs, which they cover and plug. The plug is not a halakhically valid seal because it will eventually fall off. Okay, so that is the basic idea behind this. So he then says, from the Gemara, it would appear that any sirchos, with the lone exception of those that are kisidron, in the normal order, render the lung treifa. In practice, however, it is not that simple, for not every adhesion qualifies as a sircha. So the question isn't just does it only apply Kasidron? The question, which it is okay, is what is a sircha? What halachically counts as an adhesion? That's not so simple. So we're not going to go so deep into this, but the Rosh quotes that if a good shaking of the lungs results in the sircha falling off, this adhesion is too weak to be considered a treifa, rendering sircha. So again, it's an interesting sheet of the Rosh, that the Rosh holds if you can just shake it off and it just adhesion falls off, it's not really considered to be a halachic sircha. Today, the procedure is to test the sirchas with a variation of the squeezing and palpation method, a process known as keel peeling. The external examiner of the lungs carefully peels small sirchas off the lungs. If the sircha successfully comes off and the lung inflates without a puncture, the adhesion is considered a rear, which is again like it's just some discharge, and therefore the animal's kosher. The rationale of this method is that a true sircha clings to the membranes of the lungs and does not easily come completely off. So if you could peel off the sircha, interesting. So if there's a sircha, it doesn't mean it's not going to be kosher. So it depends exactly, is it a sircha, and therefore that's what the bedika is. If in fact it can be peeled off and then you blow up the lung and you see that there's no hole, so then it really may not have been a sircha to begin. It should be noted that although in common practice among religious Jews today to consume only galat kosher, this meat is not necessarily galat in the classical sense. The fact is that it's uncommon to find a totally clean and smooth lung in this situation, as the vast majority of beef today sold as galat actually relies on the process of peeling, albeit only for light sirchos that come off easily. And it's still considered to be galat. Thus, today, there are actually three standards of meat. Kosher, which relies on peeling for all sirchas. Galat kosher, where only light sirchas are removed. And what is also known as Beis Yosef galat, where no sirchos are removed. The last category is named because it's used by those that follow the rulings of the Beis Yosef, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, who does not permit the removal of any sirchos through squeezing and palpation or peeling. So this also only applies to large animals such as beef. Smaller animals like calves, veal, lamb, deer all agree that in no matter may sirchos be removed. So it's only by a cow that we are possibly lenient regarding sirchos. Just see this one last paragraph. In general, the incidence of sirchos is apparently related to the animal's environment and perhaps to the animal's feed, and varies greatly from locale. One expert who is familiar with shchitas done all over the world reports that in western United States, one may expect to only find 2% of adult bovine without any sirchos at all. In central U.S., 15%, Honduras, 45%, Brazil, 70%, while in the cold, brisk environs of certain areas of South Africa, it is rare to ever find a sircha. So it's a very fascinating thing. Depending on where one lives will depend on the status of sircha. So again, obviously a lot of extra information I just shared with you, but it's an important detail. So a lot of people think galat kosher, the lungs are smooth, there's no sirchas at all. It's not the case, as we just saw. Okay, again, unless you're dealing with Beis Yosef shchita, which apparently is much more difficult. But again, depending on the location. If you're in a location like the United States, there's more sirchas. There's more adhesions. Okay. All right, with that said, let's keep on moving. Now let's get to Mem Zayin. Yomi Rabbi. Hani tarti boy the smichla dadi. So let's say you have these two blisters that are near one another. So leislahu bedikusa. There's no bedika. There's nothing you could do, which means it's going to be a treifa. Why? So it says Rashi, once there's two blisters, kimle rabba de inu smuchais el machmas nekev. The fact that they're close to one another, there's two of them, means there must be a hole there, and therefore that's the problem. However, if it's only one blister, it's not as problematic. Chada, if there's one blister, however, even a mischazi kacharti, let's say it looks like two blisters, but it's really only one, so then we do a little bit of examination. Mycena and silua will bring a thorn, vazinon law, and will pierce it by on one of them on a side. So ishavchan lahadadi, if it spills one to the next, chadihi, then it's still one blister. If it's only one blister, it's viksher. V'ilo, but if it doesn't spill into the next, then tarti ninhu, then they're two separate ones, are treifa. So you can basically just, like popping like a pimple, you can see what happens. Is it one blister or is it two blisters? If it's two blisters, it's a problem because we assume it's a hole. If it's only one, it's not a problem. V'yamarava, hey oini isla l'reya, they're 5 onis. These are the smaller lobes, are called oini, which are on the top of the animal. Apag klapi gavra, if we be talking about flipping it around so that instead of it being upward, but we turn the animal so the forelegs are up, and therefore when we view it in a downward way, which is unlike what these pictures are. So tlasami minabatarti mismaila. So when we're dealing with the 5 oinais, these 5 small lobes, which really are on the top of the animal, like near where the chest is, which is more narrow. The 2 bigger umois, they need more space, and therefore they're lower in the animal, so it will be able, the lung can expand greater to be able to receive more oxygen. So if you have tlasimina of a tartim, you have 3 on the right and 2 on the left, because again there's 5 lobes. Now chaser or yasir, let's say there's one extra one or one missing, or cholif, or let's say they're on different sides, they're not in the right place, so tarfa. So in all these cases, it's considered to be a treifa. Hu yatirta, so there was a situation where there was an extra lobe. He was sitting by the gate. Or Malay, Mayar Malach. So what is the din? What did Amemar say regarding this? So Malay, Akshra Nihile, he said it was actually kosher. So even though it's true that there was an extra uma, so nonetheless he felt it was okay. Okay. Armule Hadole Kamei, bring it back to him and let him recheck it. So Malay Zil Emily, go and say Lamandi Diyasav Ababa, regarding the person who was sitting by the gate, Leis Hilchsakavasi Dorava be a terrace, that the halacha is not like him regarding the extra lung, so the extra lobe in the lung. So even though it's true, maybe there's an opinion that says it's okay, but really it's treifa. V'hani mili dekami bedar de'oini. The only time we could possibly say that it would be okay is if it's at least in the same row. It's like somewhat like in a normal flow of all the other lobes. Beni tarfa. But if it's in a different part of the lung entirely, then it's so separated, then it's not going to be, it will not be good, according to all people. So even if you hold an extra lobe is okay, it depends where it's located. Ahu beni veni. So there was this lung in which the extra lobe was in between the row, it was like in between. Just coming to Ravashi, sub Ravashi, lemitrafa. So it's not in the right place. It's not on the side like the other ones, but it's in the middle, so that's not the right place. Armel Ramhuna Mar Ia Kohani Chiyu Buryasa. All of these, this is its form of health. Says Rashi, "V'amrula buriyasa buriyais v'shmeinais." This is the healthy ones, and they're fat. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not going to die. The fact that they're this way. Hani islahu, they all have this. In fact, this lobe, which apparently is in the middle. However, Vikarle Tabchi, the butchers, what they call this particular lobe is Inunisa Darvada, which we said is this lobe, literally of a rose. If we go back to this picture, so we know what we're talking about. Even though it's true, we have the two large lobes on the bottom, and then we have 3 and 2 up here. So this middle one is over here, and you can see it's called the Inusa Davardo, which is called the intermediate lobe. You can see that. Intermediate lobe. So it's in the middle, right? And that's exactly where you can see in the picture, that's how it's formed, and that's not a problem. Now, Vahani Mili Megavoy. As we continue to Mem Zayin Bebeis. Aval Agba, but let's say it's on the top part of it, Efil Kitarfa da Asa Tarfa. So he says that basically everyone's going to hold that it is a treifa. If it's on the bottom, somewhat lower down, but if it's all the way up, then that's not going to be okay. All right, let's look at question 1. Ma'itzuras hareya. What is the vision, the view of a lung? Kafishi bebehema mahidin b'chasur b'yaser. So there's 5 oinois on the top, 3 and 2, and there's 2 umois, 1 on each side, which are bigger, 3 on the right and 2 on the left. If it's missing one of the lobes, it's treifa. If it has an extra lobe, so there, of course, we saw is a machlokas. Okay. Let's look at question before we get too far ahead. TA 17. Tarti oini desrichi lahadadi. So if you have these 2 lobes that are srichi lahadadi, that has this sircha next to one another. So we said that no, there's no bedika for it. This is TB 17. I'll be shocked if I got this right. But the truth is, it's only treifa if it's shul kasidrin. If it's kasidrin, then it's okay. So I wrote. I have no idea what I wrote. It's totally not right. So this is memvav amud beis. So if, let's just write it in English. If they are next to each other, okay, which means kasidron, then it's kosher. However, if not, like the first and the third, then it's treifa. That's what they want. Okay. All right. Okay, let's keep on moving. All right. Top of Mem Zayin Beis. Amar from Hireya, if you have a lung, the dame ufta, that it has the appearance like wood, says Rashi's bikas eitzim, we'll explain what that means, then that's a treifa. Some say bechazusa, in its appearance. Some say that it's very hard like wood. And some say the neficha, that's like bloated. The neficha, not, says Rashi, nasis lavana kivikas v'hainu nami bechazusa. It also says appearance. V'igadiamri de pachiza. Some say it is pachiza, which is very hard. Very hard, which is the same thing as its feel. V'igadiamri de shie. The lace by chiyusa. It's something which chitucha. Okay, says Rashi, Kediusa, Kairit, is that the right word? No, okay. So anyway, V'ikadi Amri, the Fachiza, has like the appearance of like wood, V'ikadi Amri, Rashia, the Shia, Leisle Chitucha, the Oini. So we say that doesn't have like the appearance of a typical lobe. Omarabba. Kechuchla, if the lobe, the lung, has a bluish color, shera. However, Kedyusa Treifa. However, if it has, and this is the Rashi, Karit Diyai, Yovish V'hu this black dye, like ink, then it's treif. Diyam Rav Chanina, Shachor, if it's black, the lung, Edoim, red, Edoim it's really red. Ella Shalaka, but what it means is it has some disease. Says Rashi, Alma Lakusa V'soifa Lirka V'linka. It's going to end up rotting and get a hole into it. Okay, now this, I believe that's Chazal is brought down in Masechtas Nida as well. Yeah, it says on the side, which has to do with the dam, red dam versus black dam. Anyway, so black lungs are problematic. Yeruka kshera, if there's this green tint to the lung, then it's okay. Midrab Nasin aduma kshera. He says that if it's red, it's kosher. Midrab Nasin, the sign you have Nasin aimer pamachas halachti l'karchayom basi ishachas lifnei lifnei shemola b'na risha in mace. So she went to do a bris milah on her child, died. Sheni b'mace, and the second child died. Shlishi haviyasu lifanai. Reisi shahya edaim. We saw that the child had this redness to him, and therefore, obviously, that could be problematic. If he does a bris milah, we don't want this child to die also. So Martilo said to her, "Biti, him tini lo wait ad sheyivlo damu, until the blood literally gets more absorbed." Says Rashi, "Dein locha davar ha'amul b'fnei pikuach nefesh chutz mi'avodas chacham v'gil res shlichus damim," because even though bris milah is obviously important, but it's not something that you should risk your child's life to do. Rather, you should wait until the blood gets absorbed. It says Rashi, "Hayilch bein or lebasar." It goes between literally the skin and the flat, the hide and the flesh. The havi kimi she'en lo dam, the dam hu hanefesh, v'tai she'en lo chiyus hu meis b'maka kala. So it's easy for a person to die and get sick and die. So amtinalo, so she waited. Umali oisai, and then b'chayu. V'hayikarna oiso, they called this child Nasan Habavli al Shemi, because he gave this great advice. V'shul pamachas halachti l'medinas ki putkia. So I went to this city. Basi ishul of neshamola b'no rishon v'meis. Again, she did a bris milah on her child, died. Sheni v'meis. Shlishi haviyaisi l'fanai risi shahaya yorik hatzatzti. When I was gazing upon him, I saw that this child had a yellowish greenish tint to him. Boy. Bodam bris. Amarti lo biti hamtini lo, wait ad sheyipolo damo, until the blood literally falls. He's like jaundice. So hamtini lo umoli oiso v'chayu. After doing the bris milah, he lived this time. V'chayu karno oiso nasan ababli al shemi. Amrav kahana kikavda kshera. If the color of the lung is like the kaved, it's like the liver, says Rashi, Reish Shamar Shaladaimo Lakabed, has the same appearance as the liver, then it's kosher. Kibsara Kibisra Tarfa. However, it looks just like basar, it's treif. Says Rashi, V'hachi Kimle Delahachi Havi Lakusa, that if it looks the same as the flesh, this lung, so then you know that it really, there's a disease to it. So if you remember the word basar in this pasuk, and is treifa. Rav Sama Berida Rabba Hi Reya the Damia Kikashusa. If you have this lung that looks like hops, which are green, but not green like grass, rather it looks like hops, marika, or it looks like saffron, v'kagain beasa, for example, the color of an egg, and tarfa. That's treif. Ela yeruka de bisra hechib damya. So what is this situation that it's like greenish? Yeruka de kshera hechidami. What is this case that if it's green that it's kosher? If we're saying if it's green like hops is not good, and saffron, which is also this yellowish color. So he says kikarti. If it's the same as karti, like leeks, so then that's the exception. Ravina autum bereya. Let's say there's your lungs are stuffed or they're clogged up. So mycinan sakina will take a knife, the karinan one will cut it. Isba moigla. If there's pus that comes out, vadi machmas moiglahu, the kshera. The only reason why there was clogged up was because of the pus. So therefore, if the pus was removed and everything is fine, so it's fine. The ilo, but if let's say it wasn't machmas moigla, it wasn't because of the pus, then my Gadfo will take out either a feather, a rook, or a spittle. So we said like before, if it bubbles, which means air can flow into the lung, then it's kosher. The ilo tarf. Rabbi Yosef krum she'ola machmas maka bereya eno krum. If you have a scab on the lung because of some type of injury, so that will not count as a proper like membrane, because eventually it's going to come off, and therefore it doesn't matter that right now it's clogged. That doesn't help as a proper plugging because it's not going to last, and therefore that hole will be enough for it to be treifa. Let's say you have a lung that Gora's going to explain what that is, but it's going to be missing something. If you know where the missing thing is, so manchinala got gedaf. Now again, bring a feather, ogila, uruka. You bring again some testing implement like spittle. So imavatz tarfa. In this case, if there's a bubble, then it's a treva. V'ilog share. V'oyedinan loy. Let's say you don't know where it's coming from. Ma'aseh masi mishichoisa demaya pshuri. As we said, you should bring some lukewarm water. And you should put it inside of it. B'chamimi lo. Dekatsi. B'kriri lo dimatarchi. You can't use very hot water because it's going to shrivel up. If you use cold water, it's also going to shrivel up. It's going to become, it's not going to be an effective test. Ella, but kinan la bibshuri, we use lukewarm water. Again, imavatzvitz tarfa. If there's bubbles, then you know there's a hole in there. It's straight. If you ilog share, tata inkiv ilolo inkiv. Let's say the bottom has a hole, however, not the top. So v'hayid avsha. And maybe the reason why there's noise coming out, Zika Deveni, who is because of in between. So it doesn't mean that there's a full puncture. It just could be there air in between the inner and the outer, which is what you had before. The same thing. Let's say you have a lung that was squishing around and is basically disintegrated, just like a ketone, share. Something missing inside is not the concern. Let's look in Rashi. Basar hareya, the flesh of the lung, nimuach, is all disintegrated, but toich krumim, within the membrane. So in that situation, we say it's okay. because whatever's on the inside isn't a problem. What do you mean? We said that if you have a lung which has a hole in it or it's missing, so my chasra, what it means it's missing. There's something missing from the outside. It's the same thing as a hole. It means it's on the inside. Something missing on the inside does matter. So the Amrit Hainu Nikva, it's the same thing as a hole. Rav Shimon, the Yomer ad shetinaka b'beis hasim poinais. He says that it's only once you have a hole that actually goes into the bronchial tubes. That's only a hole because there's nothing missing. If there's a hole which does have something missing from it, if we have Shimon Moida, there would be treifa. So Chanina was sick. All Gabe Rab Nassan, B'chol Gedu Hador, they all went to visit him. Aisikame Reya, what's a nice gift to give someone who's sick? You give him a lung, which was all liquefied, just like this barrel, if you will. The Akshra, and he says it was kosher, which is basically, what do we say above? We said that if you have a lung that's swishes around, is disintegrated, it's kosher because he holds chisaron mibifnim is not a chisaron. So Amar Rabba v'hu dekaima sim poinois says provided that there's no holes in the bronchial tubes, in the smaller tubes. Amar le Ravacha b'rei the Rebbe Ravashi menaya dinan hazino. So Amar le, how would you know if there's a hole in the bronchial tubes? So Samasinan sa'ad dekunya v'shavchinan lo begavon, you should pour into it. Isba shiriki, if there's white streaks, right, then tarfa, v'ilog sheru. Rav Nachman reya nimuka, if you have a lung which is diseased, v'krum shalakayim, but its membrane is okay, sheru. Tanu yahachi. Reya nimuka, if you have a lung in which, again, has some type of illness, some disease or whatnot, however, krum shalakayim, but the membrane is okay, I feel mechezkas revius kshera, says Rashi, even if the chol chisaron, the missing part, is a revius of a lug, still it's kshera. Nitlov was taken completely out, and taken shalfuchis shila kshera. The krum shehavalan munach, which is referring to the womb, atleya kaved shila zelha yemaisav olu leha b'nei asya gimel regolim liyavna l'regel shlishi hitur lehem, and they actually matered this exact case. Okay, we're gonna stop here. Maybe see another question. Shtickle bumpy the end, but we got through it. Question 2: Elu colors that are kosher. What are the colors of a lung that are kosher? So we said definitely koil, right? White, blue. A bluish lung is fine. If it's yarek kikarti, right? If it's green, but it's green like a leek, then it's okay. If it's red, then that is okay, right? That's kosher, a red lung. And lastly, kikavda. If it's the same thing as the color of, is like a liver, right? So those are the 4 things. If it has, the lung is bluish, green, like leeks, red, or like the liver, then all of that will be kosher. Okay, let's make sure there's not another question here. Okay, question TA 15. We already did we do? Oh, we did TA 14. Nitel kavod mishtari mimenu kshera. No, that was yesterday. TA 15. Mahadin bereya nishbecha kikitoin. What is the din if you have this lung that's pouring out like a barrel, right? So we said it's kosher, but it's actually a bit more. It has to be, there cannot be a hole in the simpoinus. Let's see what he writes over here. Question 15. Im kaimu simpoinois kshera. If again the bronchial tubes, the inside tubes are okay, it's fine. The ilo habitrefa. The spherule shechisaron mibifnim lo shmei chisaron. A chisaron in the inner part is not considered to be an issue. So that's TA 15. So let's just make sure we got that line. So chisaron mibifnim lo shmi chisaron. TB 18 mahadin bereya shishcha kikitoin umadua inu tarfa machmas chisaron. So the same thing. Kosher im omer shechisaron mibifnim lo shmi chisaron. But it has, you also have to, of course, add only in the situation where the base of simpoinois are there's no holes in there. Adkan.